part of we're doing a beautification program. We continue that. The MCA is working with the University of Florida fiber team and their fiber team, which is a team that is working with the collaboratory downtown, which you had a guest speaker at your last month's meeting. We have volunteers who are working with them and with the MCA beautification downtown. We have a meeting tomorrow night to discuss our next step. We have limited abilities because, for several reasons, the roads coming through that's being repaved all the way through nice and neat. But mostly we have our limited abilities because we're working with someone else's property. And all of the property owners along our commercial area have welcomed the idea and have welcomed us. But what used to be dirt and gravel has now been asphalt. So we have some spots where we're going to have to do maybe some pots. When a storm comes, pick them up, move them to the side. I don't know, but we're going to be creative. And the UF Fiber team came and gave us a really very nice presentation of indigenous Florida plants. What would be good to plant? We don't have sprinkler systems, so what can we plant that can survive drought and just rain and hurricanes? So we'll be working with those type of plants. Let's see, and then also when the UF team was here, this will lead me into your next guest. We're working on the with the fiber team. They came and gave us a presentation on parking. It's always been kind of a tangled mess with Matt Lachey because we are in a small, condensed, compact area. And so parking is at a premium, and we have so many shop owners who have been gracious enough to open up their parking lots and saying, hey, on the weekends we get a lot of people. They're welcome to park here, park there. I probably shouldn't say this in public, but I'll say it. Park in the park. So that's because we are limited. And so so we are working with some of the shop owners and Greg Stuart, who is we're partnering with him, is what can we do to attack this program. And Greg will also be speaking on behalf of one of our shopkeepers, our restaurateur, John at the Blue Dog, how we're looking at these programs. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Yes, so I was at the May 1st meeting at the fire department, and that was when the fiber team gave us a presentation on the beautification, and they also gave us a presentation on parking, which Greg will speak now. So we'll just lead one. Yes, sir.
With whom at the county were you talking to be able to tear down structures that are abandoned, destroyed? I have had no luck trying to get them to commit to anything, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, so I personally have been in contact with William Diaz, who is the head of our code enforcement, and I'm also in contact with Kevin Ruane's office. So, I did mention this to them last week. I was on the phone with both parties, and I said, when we had this road come, the bridge that was down to single lane, we had it was fire torches and pitchforks. People were very angry with that single lane. And I said, as soon as you began to communicate with us and send out a once-a-week update, the anger kind of tempered a little bit because we knew what was coming up. We knew tonight they're going to do this. Next week they're doing that. So I said, would you please keep us in the loop on what you can do for us and what is happening with us? So that was my request, and that was my request last Friday. I've not heard just back just yet. Today's Tuesday. I usually give them a little time as they kind of, circle their wagons and discuss how can they communicate with us on what the next level is. But those are the two parties I've been working with.
All right, that's good. I've dealt with them too. So.
Yeah. Don't let up. Sir. Leo.
Yes. When are we going to do away with the barrels on Pine Island Road? It's ugly. I mean, if you want to make Matlacha pretty, do away with the barrels, and you'll have plenty of places to park, I guarantee you, because there's no businesses there, and there's no houses. So you've got the ability for parking, but it seems like a waste of space, and it's really an eyesore. I mean, let's make Matlacha beautiful, but putting tons and tons of barrels, red barrels. Maybe if you had a contest and start painting the barrels, we could enjoy
love
them
that
a
idea.
bit, like the trees, have a contest, best barrel in Matlacha or something like that. That would work, but just having those red barrels out there, that's really an eyesore. And it really doesn't do anything for traffic because there's lines on the road already. So what are we doing?
I'm glad you asked.
Oh, good.
So I have a good answer for you. So 2 Mondays ago at our community meeting, literally as I was walking in the door, FDOT had sent me an update about those barrels and that part of the road. So within the next 2 to 3 weeks, they are completing the painting of the parking lines. They are completing whatever painting they have to do for safety purposes. And they have also, for those of you who've been here a long time, if you can remember, there was a crosswalk at Bert's Gift Shop from the north side to the south side at the base of the bridge. Those, at the, what was the hotel? Bridgeview Inn or Bridgewater Inn. There was a crosswalk there. And if you look now today, when you go there, they have cut out part of the asphalt, poured the cement slabs on both sides, prepping for the crosswalk. So that is the last step and a few other small minor things. So we're looking at 2 to 3 weeks. They will come and pick up the orange barrels. So I'm so excited. No one's more excited about those orange barrels than me. I had a man coming right at me with a barrel. And all I kept saying, and he was following, it was when it was single lane and we were all car by car by car. And here he came with a barrel in front of him, and I thought, please God, don't let that barrel hit my car. But he just kept on going. I don't know where the barrel ended or the man, but it was an older gentleman. So, and the reason they're there, so that you know, it's for traffic, that exact reason, traffic control. We were in single lane because of the bridge construction. People have no patience, and they were trying to go around each other. That's what those barrels were doing there, was for traffic and safety control.
And it would be a tourist attraction worldwide.
I love
Matlacha,
that.
the minion capital of the world.
I love that. I'm gonna send Rob Price a little. Can we keep one of those for a minion? Okay, so saying that, should I turn it over to our partner, Greg Stuart, who's going to talk to us about parking on the islands. Thank you, everybody. Oh, yeah, you betcha.
As we're setting up for our next speaker, if I can remind folks, if you're going to ask questions or you have any comments, please make sure you use your microphone and keep it nice, Leo, close to the face so people can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Stuart. Some of you know me, some of you don't. The people that know me, I feel sorry for you. I'm going to try to make a complex topic simple. But before I do that, I'm a 29-year resident of Matlacha, been involved in the Greater Pine Island Plan since 1992. I've authored the mega home regulations in Matlacha and the transfer development ordinance and a lot of stuff. And I'm here representing John Lynch, one of the co-owners and co-founders of the Blue Dog. I've been working with John in trying to get the county to let them go, to release their regulatory clause. They're trying to shut down John's outdoor dining deck. The reason why they do so is lack of parking. And so working with John, and through John, I may add, John has sponsored a regulatory reform, if you will, for parking. We've managed to change the rules to reduce the parking by around 40%, for the Matlacha Historic District, which is a good thing. Meanwhile, we're still struggling and fighting Lee County because they're trying to shut down John's outdoor dining deck. And basically, you're talking about eliminating 30% plus of his seating capacity. And as with any restaurant, bar, marina, if you take out 30% of the slips, retail, 30% of your space, you're taking 30% out of your inventory across the board. You're fundamentally weakening a business. And in this context, post-Ian recovery context, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's a textbook example of the big picture of which I want to discuss. And again, it's very complicated. There's a lot of things about this, and I'm going to try to just keep it as simple as I can. The last page of this handout is really what we're here for, which is a resolution of support. What we want is to see the Greater Pine Island Civic Association not only authorize and execute this resolution, but in 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 months when we come to hearing, we absolutely would like, a strong public showing, people supporting the Blue Dog, because if you're supporting the Blue Dog, you're supporting the Build Back of Matlacha, and if you're supporting the Build Back of Matlacha, then you're supporting Greater Pine Island recovery. Before I get into this, I have to say, my title, when I say regulatory reform, and this is a warning for everybody, please keep a close eye on the county commission, because the scuttlebutt is flying. They want to get rid of all community plans, including the Greater Pine Island plan. This new thrust was basically a backlash from the Alva brouhaha. So the strong rumor has it that with the county commission getting a lot of stuff in their face about the Alva and the development that's going on out there, they're going, well, let's just get rid of all the community plans. And guys, Pine Island Community Plan is the principal community plan. It's the first. It has absolute bearing on public health, safety, and welfare because of geography, coastal vulnerability, ecological systems, water quality. So I encourage every one of you, please keep an eye out, because anything can happen, and I've seen it. So that said, for context, I've run the numbers. Matlacha has lost $7.5 million in property values. And that reflects probably $113,000 in annual property tax, and that's annual. Matlacha's lost around 145 jobs with $4.3 million in annual salaries, and if you think of those salaries, the multiplier effect, the ripple effect, Matlacha has lost in just commercial restaurants. The commercial restaurants alone has lost, by my calculation, $19.9 million in revenue. That's equal to $1.19 million in tax revenues. So as an economic proposition, notwithstanding the community character and all that other stuff, just from economics alone, it's imperative that we do everything we can to support a viable build back of Matlacha. So when you look at the Greater Pine Island Plan 2453, there's a policy that says, hey, we're going to modify regulations when we need to protect the interest of our owners, protect the interests of the general public. It's there. And so that's what I'm here to talk about within the context of what I'm experiencing with John Lynch and the Blue Dog. The original thrust of the Pine Island Plan was community character and conservation, and it's been relatively successful. It's done a good job, but now that we're, God, it's crazy to say, 25% into the 21st century, you know, we've got to change the orientation for Matlacha, not for Pine Island itself, but for Matlacha. We need to change the orientation to not only community character, but to build back in recovery. And so what I've done, and I've done a broad brush of, I believe, 7 rules and policies, and there are many more. And I have not vetted them. There are some that may make sense. There are some that don't. You know, I'm the first to tell you that I'm wrong half the time, according to my wife. I'm wrong 3/4 of the time, but that's another issue. But what I wanted to do is just throw these out as examples, not to get fixated on the merits and the substance, but as illustrative of where I believe the Civic Association, both Civic Associations need to start really focusing on, which is, you know, okay, we need to really take a look. And again, I emphasize, this is not for Brokelia, this is not for St. James City, this is really for Matlacha, and the reason is the historic platted nature of Matlacha are very small lots. It's a very dense village. So the total focus of these rules are Matlacha. And the first one, for example, you know, you have to have a 50-foot buffer along an aquatic preserve unless you're an existing lot, which is fine and good. But the economics of causeway redevelopment are such that given the cost, I mean, seawall structures alone, insane cost, and then the vertical construction cost. So in order to have any type of successful build back, there has to be economics that underpin that. So I can see in the future, hey, you know, if we combine these 2 lots, then we can have a larger building, generate more revenue. But then if you combine the 2 lots, voila, it's not an existing lot, it's a new lot. Then you have to meet the 50-foot aquatic preserve. So there needs to be call out for that type of scenario. There needs to be call out for the 10,000 square foot standard, which basically calls for, you're at 10,000 square feet, you need a variance or deviation. And again, you're thinking, oh, 10,000 square feet is huge on a single story footprint, but if you're going up 3 stories, it's not that huge. My point on number 2 is there are in the historic district, there are regulatory devices, specifically the certificate of appropriateness. You know, when you're going into, let's say the old Fish House Marina, someone's going to knock that down, build it up. Yeah, you know, they could build it up and they got to go through the COA, and so it's done. So number 2, hey, there's some redundancy there. So exclude the Matlacha commercial area. And again, these are just illustrations. They may not be exactly what everyone wants, but I'm throwing them out as examples. The third one, there's language about minor commercial uses. Minor commercial is a regulatory name. It has specific meaning. It should be deleted for Matlacha. It should just be, hey, you know, just encourage Matlacha businesses. It should not have any limitation on minor commercial. It's not warranted, again, and there are other regulatory mechanisms to deal with the character. The fourth one, and this is really important because they're talking about architectural and site design standards can't be granted unless they meet criteria for variances. And again, this is very legal and very technical, but variances, basically, the standard is that there has to be an inherent exceptional condition that wasn't caused by the property owner to then grant regulatory relief. And that is a very high burden. Now, and I have found that, well, yeah, but through a COA process, the director has discretion, you know, to grant that. But then I've had, specifically with John's case, with the Blue Dog, you know, I go, hey, you know, we need this, and the county's going, well, yeah, but you're in the zoning process. That's a COA process. I go, well, then let's go into the COA process, the certificate of appropriateness, and they go, no, you can't because you need the zoning first. Yeah, you know, so it's stuff like that that you really need to start really looking at and figuring out, oh, wait a minute, do we even need that type of high standard? Certainly I'm proposing, hey, let's just eliminate the variance standard across the board for the Causeway area, which is mixed-use historic district, you know, and again, eliminate all the crazy double, you know, double speak and rules and regulations. The next one, 5, you know, I'm proposing a new policy. Hey, basically, let's use the park in its fullest capacity to support recreation and the economic viability and vitality of Matlacha. This is a no-brainer, and again, using John's case, county saying, well, you can't count the park's surplus parking for your needs, and notwithstanding the fact that everyone uses the park, people go to the park, they do their thing, then they walk around, go to the Blue Dog, go to the shops or whatever. So I'm trying to get the county to recognize the reality of the situation. That is where that policy comes in. And another example, which I didn't even get into because I forgot, compact parking spaces. The county has stripped out compact parking spaces. If you have a number of compact parking spaces, yeah, each business owner could probably get another parking space or two. The county stripped out shared parking agreements. Again, using Blue Dog as an example. Hey, we've got a shared parking agreement with RE/MAX. And the county's response is, well, that's too bad because we don't accept shared parking agreements. Stuff like that. And again, I'm using these as examples. I think these things need to be fully vetted by the community and so forth. The next one, getting back into deviations, coastal high hazard areas, you can't have setback, lot coverage, and density relief unless you meet the variance standard rather than a deviation standard. I discussed the variance standard. The deviation standard is basically, hey, if you meet the code, if you meet the intent of the code, if it has a benefit to you, we'll grant it. It's a much lower standard. And I'm suggesting exclude the historic district, the causeway areas in Matlacha. And again, and thank you, Michael, because Michael, we had a conversation today, and you reminded me about, you know, the COA process. Yeah, the COA, the director is empowered to grant relief, but then see, there's cross purposes. You've got the LEAP plan saying one thing, you've got the land development code saying another, and then you've got chapter, what's that, 30, Michael, is it 33 or 32? 33, that's saying a third. So, you know, we need to trim this out, get clarity, and I say that because again, the county was throwing this at me because we want, if you go to the Blue Dog, there's an outside freezer structure towards the canal. We need a setback relief, and they're going, well, we can't give it to you. You need to meet the variance standard. And I was saying, well, the director can give it through a COA. And they go, well, yeah, but you're not in a COA process. So it's like, so again, I think you're seeing where I'm coming from. And the last, you know, hey, the director has the ability to grant a 10% parking space reduction. And I'm thinking for the historic district, yeah, that's great, but, you know, maybe it should be 20%. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. I don't want to get hung up on the substance and the details of this stuff. I'm throwing this out as legitimate examples that, of course, need to be vetted through a process. And then getting back into my fundamental purpose of being here, we absolutely need your support. That's what the resolution is. I mean, this is almost a no-brainer, and I can't tell you, guys, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've never had a case that has frustrated me as much as this, because it's just so obvious that the county should be working with my client, but they're not. They're working against the client. And if you're taking out 30+% of capacity, you're taking out 30+% of your employees, of your tax revenues, of all the stuff that you need to buy. And the bottom line is this, you know, I mean, my gosh, Matlacha, we've lost our heart and soul. You know, we've lost, Leona, we've lost Burt's, we've lost the old fish house, we've lost so much, and now they're trying to just pull the, you know, I'm not saying pull the legs out from under John and the Blue Dog, but yeah, okay, they are. You know, so again, that's my pitch. When I started this, I was really focused on the Blue Dog, but then when I step back, I go, wait a minute, there's a bigger picture here. So that's why I did this presentation, and certainly I've contributed to the Civic Associations, plural, pro bono. I certainly would be more than willing to offer my expertise, to this effort, because it is going to be an effort. And again, I've got to emphasize, we have to be really careful, because if we come in and go, oh, the rules horrible, and we need to, then the county commission go, well, let's just take out all the rules, because that's where they're coming from. Let's just gut it, and let's have everything as a free-for-all. So this is going to be a real delicate political dance. But I sincerely believe on my heart that we need to start addressing this stuff, because this recovery, it's not going to be in a year or 2 years. We're talking about, maybe even a generation, by the time the dust settles. And that is, of course, if we don't get whacked again. So that's the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for your time.
I have a question. So what other businesses either are currently being affected or potentially could be affected by what the county is, what the experience is with Blue Dog right now?
Well, I'm not going to disclose, but I'm representing a California group that's doing a hard due diligence on buying the old fish house and doing their thing with the fish house, but they're looking at it, my gosh, we've got to, given the cost of the seawall repair and the docks, and they absolutely have to go up, the full building height, and that triggers the 10,000 square foot, and so that's a perfect example. The other businesses are so small that, yeah, they will still need relief on the parking. The setbacks, I think they can get through the COA process. But the causeway properties, again, and that's another example, is you need probably greater area to develop an economically viable product to cover these construction costs. Because again, construction now, it's not like you could do it at $400 a square foot. Commercial construction is 3 times that now, and then you've got seawall. So, hey, John.
Talk about your resolution.
Excuse me?
Talk about your resolution.
Yes, please.
To finish this thought, it's not just Blue Dog. We're spearheading it, but it's the current businesses that we're not will eventually open up in Matlacha, and including things like on the other side of the bridge with Birch and things like that. They are going to need variances. They're going to need some kind of relief as well. So we are spearheading it, and it will help us to not lose 30% of what we have, but it'll also help other businesses in the area as well. The 30%, one thing I wanted to touch on also is, with 30% less seats, that's 30% less staff, most of which are from the island. 30% less stone crab, 30% less blue crab. I mean, there's a wide ripple effect that we have here, and I've mentioned it a number of times, but I just to people to realize it, like we do a lot of business, and then 30% of less of that's a lot. That affects a lot of different people. So I just wanted to make sure that was something that we were touched on.
I think I missed something from the beginning, or just me not knowing in general. I'm seeing a big list here of what's being suggested or recommended, but I don't know the background. When you say reduction of 30%, what is being or told to you by the county? That I didn't get that part, and maybe it's general knowledge, but I don't know it.
No, in terms of John's case, by shutting, because they're saying you've got to close down your outdoor deck. The outdoor deck and dining area is around 30% of his seating capacity, so that's where the 30% comes in. And they're saying you don't have enough parking to support that, and we've done extensive surveys and parking studies to show otherwise. So that's the 30%. They're trying to cut out the outdoor deck in the back. JR?
Hold on just a second. Can you help everybody here and everybody online understand that the first 7 things you went through are things that maybe Matlacha wishes could happen, but that frankly, doesn't really have anything to do with the specific issue that you're here for?
Correct, because
right?
Yes, yeah, because what I want to do is, John gave me, this case has given me insight and concern to the big picture, so I'm like working for John, but personally as a Matlacha guy, I want to start looking at the big picture and do what I can. So, and again, I got to emphasize, this isn't St. James City, Bokeelia, the center. This is strictly Matlacha because we just had these small lots.
Leo Amos, Matlacha. My question is, we've had this issue for a long time. I mean, this is not something that they just built, okay, and now we have a problem. Bert's Bar had a problem forever. They never had enough parking places. And my question is why now are we faced with a problem with Blue Dog when this has already been factored in for years? Could you explain what's happened to Blue Dog that created this problem?
Yeah,
I think that's what everybody wants to hear. I mean, you know, if you see something that's been in business for a long time and it's not a problem, why now at once is it a problem?
Well, and stepping back the big picture and using Burt's as an example, and that's why we need to look at it. Burt's Bar and all those other businesses were legally defined non-conforming uses. So yeah, hey, you don't have enough parking, fine and good. If they're successful in getting a backfill to fill their property and rebuild, they're not non-conforming. They've got to meet the code. So that's where the big picture comes in. Specifically with John, you know, I don't know, John. I would say that ever since COVID, you know, post-COVID, they've been looking at you to bring your property up to speed. And this, and I will say this, and this is what I don't understand either, because how do I say this? It's not like not like the Blue Dog was a non-conforming use. It was meeting the code, but they got dialed in for some reason that, hey, you know, you don't have enough parking on the outdoor deck. And I can't explain it better than that. Maybe you can, John.
I just want to touch on that, Leo. The places like Bird's, which is a great example, and I miss Bird's to my soul, but places like Bird's had off-site parking that was recognized by the county even. Even though we have off-site parking allowed, we have deals with Remax and with Barn Hills and things, but the county has a relatively new rule that off-site agreements don't count. And that's the reason why Bird's was able to do this and we're not. So even though people do, and even though people do park at Barn Hills and park at Remax and park in the park, the county doesn't recognize any of those as you know, parking for Blue Dog, even though it's parking for Matlacha in general. It's not just us; it's the other shops as well. So, but that's the why Birch can get away with it, but we couldn't, you know, or not even get away with it. Birch was allowed to, and we weren't.
It's weird. It really is. It seems to me it's discriminatory, honestly, because every single business before Ian had deficiencies in parking. They weren't meeting the code across the board. Why they're singling out John Lynch and Blue Dog, I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Carol?
So our little community is on a lifeline, and if we lose this, I don't know what's going to happen to the 30% and the ripple effect. Our fishermen, our crabbers, the dishwashers. So my question to you is, does the county also consider there are so many of us who live in the neighborhood that walk there daily to eat? We take up more than 30%, the neighborhood itself, when we go there, and then we bring our families. It's huge. Do they consider that? And I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, I was going to say, we provided 2 surveys in 2022, before Ian and after Ian. We provided 2 surveys in 2024, and the county just said, we want another survey. So last month, we just did 2 more, so we've had done 6 surveys, and the finding, if you average all the, and I call it non-vehicular patrons, people that don't use cars, Uber, so we get boats, we walk, scooters, whatever, it averages 22.9%. And if you're factoring in 22.9%, you know, within the context of everything else, yeah, we got more than enough parking. So who knows if the county's going to recognize it, but they just keep throwing another roadblock at us.
So my follow-up question is, clearly we're not the only town that does not have enough parking. You look at Key West and everyone's like looking at each other, where do we park? Have you contacted some of the other counties? Example for, what is Key West County? Monroe?
Monroe.
And do they have this situation, and how are they handling it? If
Oh, that's a great question, because I did a comprehensive comparative analysis of Florida historic districts. Key West, Tarpon Springs, St. Augustine, Coral Gables, and the way they roll. And this is where Lee County is in error. Lee County goes, well, if you've got a 3,000 square foot restaurant, your parking calculations are based on 3,000. Key West goes, no, your parking calculation is two parts. One for the patron area, and I believe it was one space per 75 square feet, and then one space per 300 square feet for the non-patron area, the kitchens and the storage area. And that way, it's much more balanced. And you see historic districts have very customized and acute rules. Lee County is treating the historic district as like any restaurant on US 41. And I've been trying to, again, get them to recognize that. And right now, I'm very skeptical. I think we're going to be going into hearing, can I say it, with a food fight.
Can
Get
we,
it? Food
can,
fight?
what about bike racks?
That was pretty bad, I'm sorry.
Would they consider bike racks?
Yeah, but that's the 10% pedestrian multimodal, non-vehicular. And again, we're at 22.9%. So and that's what I've been saying. Guys, you've got to look at the reality of the situation. And again, I'm very skeptical of that. And that's why I really want the Civic Association to vote or change or do whatever, but to grant a resolution or a letter of support, because we need, I think it's just going to be politics. I don't think we can move staff. Maybe we can, but I think if you get enough people at the hearing examiner, and we have a very, very, very strong case, it's just moving the bureaucracy. That's the issue. So once we get in the hearing, if we have popular support, I think we'll be fine.
So, Greg, looking at your resolution, which I guess you'd like to have the folks vote on tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we asked him not to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Well,
we really do not want to discuss.
well, that's fine. Oh, all right. Well, the
Call and ask not to bring it.
okay. Well, the Matlacha Civic Association did pass this resolution. So my understanding is that you have made an application for a variance from the code for Blue Dog parking.
Actually, I'm glad you pointed
Is
out.
that what you've done?
No, they said we actually were coming in and rezoning the property to planned development, because they weren't going to give us the variances and the special exception, so they're forcing John to spend scores of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to we're rezoning the property just to get the
So is that
outcome.
what this resolution is for?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a CPD, commercial plan development.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that.
So let's say you're successful with John, which would be great. Is that applying to the whole district of Matlacha there?
Well,
Or does every business then have to go in and fight this battle again?
exactly. That's what I mean. John, if we win for John, that's John's win. But what I'm here is saying, hey, look, what I'm trying to do is let's address this so everybody doesn't have to go what John's going through. So that's what I'm here for, above and beyond representing John and Blue Dog.
Because it seems like Captain Cons has put their barrier in for the water,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be happening soon, I would guess.
Yeah.
A lot of money going in up there. So, and I
Yeah.
didn't think that barrier was all that high. It's only a couple feet above the water.
Yeah. And again, just to emphasize, I am solely looking at Matlacha because of the context, and I'm not that knowledgeable. I'm knowledgeable of Bokeelia and St. James City, but not like Matlacha. So this stuff is applicable. That said, if you guys really want to get involved and look at this thing, and I'll help you, maybe you do look at St. James City and Bokeelia. Maybe there are stuff that's serving cross purposes, but I don't know. I know the stuff that I identified is a list for me for Matlacha.
I actually have a question from online. So someone wrote in and asked, do you think this is an edict as a backlash from the accident that occurred along Pine Island Road?
No, because this predated, this started after COVID, and then that accident, you mean the drunken driver that hit that, yeah. No, this predated that,
This was a couple years before.
Thank you.
yeah. Very sad to me.
Ju-
Yeah, how Michael?
My last comment, that for Michael Hannon from Matt Lachey and also working for Carol and the Civic Association, just for informational purposes, because the topic here is Matt Lachey, the MCA Board of Directors has made a small committee of 3, myself, Shar Seufert, who is a RE/MAX realtor broker, Mike Shevlin, a Century One salesman and broker who's been here forever, to study and make a recommendation on the possibility of Matt Lachey's community creating one of the various different types of special districts that can be established under Florida law. There are hundreds of special districts around the state of Florida, and what a special district is allowed to do is to raise funds for infrastructure projects within their designated region. Locally, one of the most relevant is Captiva Island has a special district for soil erosion prevention from hurricanes and seawater, and they have a very significant budget. So this study that we're conducting, there are a number of organizations that actually manage these special districts. One is Special District Services, and I've spoken to the president, and he's been very, very helpful about the types of things that we can do. The State of Florida Department of Commerce has a gentleman who has created a handbook that gives you the procedures for how to do this. So if you were to kind of put some meat on the bone and create a wish list, this is just hypothetical, a special district could build a parking lot at the east and west end of Matt Lachey and operate that parking lot. A special district could have an arrangement with the Lee County Recreation Department to create infrastructure in the park and actually run the park. And the park actually could be a moneymaker for the special district. The park doesn't have irrigation, it doesn't have boat slips, it doesn't have any kind of activities that are interesting to the people in Matt Lachey. It's really highly underutilized. You know, just think about it. It could have an amphitheater for musical presentations on a regular basis and all kinds of shade areas. And then the historic district itself, once upon a time, had funds available to it for persons there to use to develop their properties. These are examples, and so I just want everybody to understand that we're looking at this too, and there are other governmental options available to us. We are a donor community when it comes to taxes. Our tax money goes to other people in Lee County, and very little of it, comes back to us. And that will give us the opportunity to look out for not just John, but other businesses. And Greg is right. All the reporting on Block 1 where Burt's was is that they are in the process and should receive permits soon to build their seawalls out at their property lines and increase the size of that 5 times. And of course, everything's going to have to be built up to code, creating an enormous amount of parking area underneath those properties there. And some of the lots that are underwater have recently been purchased by investors who are anxious to take advantage of what's going to happen. The same thing is possible in Block 3, where I'm building a house. There are about 9 lots, including John's, which are underwater. And those areas also can be pushed out. And John has been fighting a battle at his own home for years and years and years. and he's got 50 feet underwater. I mean, literally half his property is underwater. And these are logical things that I think, quite frankly, Historic Preservation Board is open to, and I think Lee County is open to. At least, you know, we're seeing that more recently. But, you know, they're not, Lee County's not going to do anything themselves for us. We're going to have to go out and do it for ourselves.
The Florida legislature recently passed a bill. I don't know if the governor has signed it yet or if it maybe doesn't need a signature because it will go to ballot, which is not in favor of putting before the voters single district voting. So instead of having Lee County commissioners, plural, to represent all of Lee County, sort of. It would be one commissioner per area. And I would encourage this civic association to have that as a topic for full discussion in the fall, both the pros and the cons, because there are. And I really would like to see that. I think that my personal belief is that a single commissioner that we could talk with would be of benefit, particularly in a situation like this. Thank you.
So I have a question. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this one, and it kind of pushes up into you a bit, but obviously you're going and you're asking for a variance.
Rezoning.
Rezoning, okay. I'm under the assumption that there probably are multiple ways that this situation could be resolved. And I'm wondering, have you explored any other options other than going and asking for a rezoning, and can you tell us about them?
Yeah, and actually the property was, or currently is zoned C1. We went in for a special exception because you need a special exception for outdoor dining on premise with a consumption, with alcoholic consumption at or under 50%. And they basically were denying that, and they were denying that based on a lack of parking. The only other route was to rezone the property, and the concept was getting out of that variance standard, you know, the inherent extraordinary conditions that hasn't been caused by the property owner. So that was our standard. So we decided on going into and actually staff recommended it, go as a planned development, then you can request a deviation. The deviation standard is, hey, do you meet the intent of the code and does it benefit the applicant? Yes and yes. And so we're going, okay, we'll rezone it to CPD and you guys will be cool with it. So far, they're not that cool. So yeah, we tried the other. There's basically two ways to deal with this, and the first way we were getting our heads taken off. So.
Well, but in reality, it seems like Matlacha has a parking problem, period. And has nobody looked at the idea or pushed forward on the idea of maybe we need a parking lot on the east side and a parking lot on the west side? Has that been looked at?
Well, two things. We hired William Oliver, a traffic engineer. He did a very detailed traffic study showing that there is ample parking if you allow and take into consideration using the post office strip center as example. That's closed at 5, people park there. So the parking study does show Matlacha does have, you know, enough parking. It's not ideal, but we've got enough. And that was before we changed the rule. Now that we're knocked out 40%, we certainly have enough parking. But the other issue, the parking lot issues, I think it's a good idea. But you know, as a guy that's been in development and finance, the first thing that pops in my mind is, okay, who owns it? How much money is it going to make? You know, what's the return on something like that? And then what's the liability? And, you know, and that's the challenge with Matlacha, because it's got enough commercial, but it's not like Fort Myers Beach and Times Square that's got a weight of commercial. So it's got enough to kind of make it happen. But does it have the weight to really have a private entrepreneur going, hey man, you know, I'm gonna spend $80,000 or $100,000 in permitting and construction, build a parking lot, get insurance, hire some. I don't know. Yeah, and then you got to lease the land. But I mean, it's worth exploring, absolutely. But you know, because again, I'm grounded in economics, and I go, okay, you know, if it makes sense, market's going to solve that problem. I think it's definitely, Michael, it's definitely worth exploring. I just think that, you know, the reality of the dollars and cents needs to be penciled in and figured out. So yeah, I mean, and I will say this, and see where Matlacha was brilliant, and it's gone now. It's never going to come back. Is that you had these small businesses, small properties, low basis, affordable rents. They were incubator type businesses. And now in the rebuild, like I said, the cost of construction is astronomical. How are you going to capture that? You know, so who's going to be renting that? How much stuff are you going to have to sell to pay the rent roll? This is a challenge. It really is. And I don't have any solutions per se. I'm just recognizing, hey, here's some regulatory obstacles. Maybe we can carve away at that. That'll be a springboard. But it's like I said, I think it's a generational issue here. It's fundamental in the character of Matlacha. I'm not being gloom and doom. I'm just saying that's the way I see it. So, hey, J.R.
Leo Amos. The question I have is, you know, you drive down the road, you look at Yucatan.
Leo.
They're using the road over there on the side to park cars, okay? And how do they get credit for roadway parking?
Yeah, I looked at that carefully because I had the same question. I'm going, how do they do that? They did get, because it's a planned development, so they got a deviation for a slight reduction in parking, and then they allowed, with the design, if you notice, they're like 3-tier back to back to back, and part of their zoning resolution is they're mandatory valet, so basically they're shuffling cars, you know, because in most parking lots you have to have a 24-foot. No, in the resolution it's mandatory. You had that. Yeah.
The business needs.
No, I mean as the business owner. Yeah, the business had to provide valet to give them. Yeah, absolutely. It's in the resolution, and it's in the site plan. And so what their concept was, well, if we eliminate the 24-foot aisle, you know, we get another parking space, and you need a valet guy to be moving because cars need to be moved. But you're right. I mean, they didn't grant, because what I'm observing, I believe that it's most of the employees are parking in the right-of-way. I have seen customers, but yeah, I've seen customers, but I think a lot of employees park in the right-of-way too. But that's how they did it. They got a slight reduction, and then part of the resolution, you know, they're doing this, you know, back-to-back with valet. And see, John can't do that because you don't have the girth. You know, you have 60-some-odd feet to play with, so it's impossible. So that's how, but it still don't work.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
Our
you.
situation is obviously the majority of our members are online. So we are not really able to conduct an appropriate vote this evening because of that reason. So what we would like to do is, now that we've had the presentation, push that out to our members, and then we can come back to you with that result. Okay?
If I can encourage everyone and online, when this is advertised and we do have a hearing date, we will be, you know, pushing that. Hey, here's a date. Please attend. Please attend, because I look at it not as a Matlacha, but as a Pine Islander. You've got this gateway that needs to be recovered. You recover that, then that's going to help Pine Island. And plus, you know, John's got killer hamburgers. So.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, just then in our closing, our next meeting will be here June 3rd, and we do have our speakers. Hopefully nothing will go awry there, but we've got the tax collector, Noel Branning, and then Matt Caldwell. They've committed to next month's meeting. And then we've already planned on no meeting in July. So we hope to see everyone here in June. And Steve, you had something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I was the one that scheduled Noel and Matt to come out for our meeting on June 3rd, and they were asking for questions. So whether you're sitting in here or you're online, if you have questions, please forward them to our gpicainfo.org mailbox, because they were asking sort of what we wanted them to cover. I will tell you that what I asked of them was they both provide services, and what are the 4 or 5 services that each of them performs that they think is information that would be very helpful to our membership. So that's kind of an overarching thing, but if you've got specifics, we'd love to have them in advance, and we'd love to give that information to them in advance so they can answer those questions.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good evening.
Can you give me a hint as